We're here to help. Take the first step. Call us today at 800-461-3329 for a free no-obligation assessment. Your insurance may even cover the full cost of treatment. Please don't wait. Call 800-461-3329. If nothing changes, nothing changes. Call American Drug Treatment Centers to speak with our trained staff. We'll walk you through getting yourself or a loved one into treatment even if they won't admit there's a problem. The truth is, drugs and alcohol want you dead. Don't let them win. One simple call will start you on the road to recovery. Call 800-461-3329 now. It will be the best thing you ever do. Call 800-461-3329. 800-461-3329.
Giants defensive end Jason Pierre-Paul could make his much-anticipated season debut against the Buccaneers this Sunday. JPP hasn't played since injuring his hand in a fireworks accident on the 4th of July, but he believes he can return to Pro Bowl form.
Coming off any injury, you just got to go out there and have that confidence, you know. I got to feel confident in myself, shoot my hand, and doing what I do best.
Royals all-star left fielder Alex Gordon declined his $13.75 million player option and will be a free agent for the first time. He spent his entire 9-year career with Kansas City after being drafted second overall in 2005. Gordon hit .271 with 13 home runs and 48 RBIs in 104 games during the regular season and hit a tying homer in the 9th inning of Game 1 of the World Series as the Royals went on to beat the Mets in 5 games. For USA Radio News, I'm Tammy Rowe.
The smoke is rising, and the next crop of podcasts devoted to cannabis providers and enthusiasts are ready to be harvested. Welcome to the Cannabis Radio Network, founded by respected rainmakers who have been producing award-winning podcasts for over a decade. Industry headlines, business updates, medical reports, marketing, and e-commerce education rolled up perfectly for your consumption. Let's grow together. The Cannabis Radio Network. CannabisRadio.com. Podcasting about all things cannabis. This is CannabisRadio.com, a service of Cannabis Media. Stand by for another great hour of CannabisRadio.com. But first, let's get you informed with news around the world in 90 seconds. Seed to sale, clicks to conversions, and more. You're listening to the Cannabis Radio Network.
BBC News with David Austin. Egypt says it was not told in advance about Britain's decision to suspend flights from the resort of Sharm el-Sheikh. A senior official told the BBC that the issue would dominate today's meeting in London between the British Prime Minister David Cameron and the Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. Russia has described the British theory as speculation and says it's still investigating the cause of the disaster. The opposition leader in Myanmar, Aung San Suu Kyi, has said she will run the government if her party wins the country's first openly contested election in 25 years. Myanmar's military-drafted constitution bars her from the presidency, but she said she would head the government and appoint a president who would work in accordance with her party's policies. The Real Madrid football star Karim Benzema is appearing before an investigating magistrate in France today as part of an alleged blackmail case. Investigators want to determine if Benzema had any involvement in an attempt to extort money from his fellow French international Mathieu Valbuena after a sex tape got into the hands of suspected blackmailers. The U.S. Defense Secretary Ash Carter has visited a U.S. aircraft carrier in the South China Sea. China's foreign ministry described the visit as provocative and a threat to the sovereignty and security of other countries. Meanwhile, China's President Xi Jinping is beginning a 2-day visit to Vietnam. It comes at a time of tensions between the two countries.
This is the USA Radio Business Report. I'm Russ Jones. Federal regulators are hitting Japanese airbag maker Takata with the largest fine in the history of the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. NHTSA Administrator Mark Rosekind announced the penalty.
Takata agrees to pay the largest civil penalty in NHTSA's history, $200 million. It must pay $70 million in cash and remaining amounts if it violates the terms of NHTSA orders.
Takata will have to phase out and recall all the defective airbag inflators that have been known to rupture. Officials are also accelerating recalls of the defective airbags.
It orders the 12 manufacturers that have issued Takata recalls to complete those recalls on an accelerated schedule and to prioritize vehicles based on risk.
More than 19 million vehicles in the U.S. have already been recalled over the issue. This is the USA Radio Business Report. I'm Russ Jones.
Ganjapreneur.com, your guide to the cannabis business world. Ganjapreneur.com is a comprehensive resource for cannabis professionals and entrepreneurs. Download the Ganjapreneur app on your smartphone or tablet to catch up on cannabis industry news, scroll through our daily job listings, and learn about successful cannabis companies, executives, and investors. Ganjapreneur.com, helping Ganjapreneurs grow.
Podcasting about all things cannabis. This is CannabisRadio.com, a service of Cannabis Media. Stand by for another great hour of CannabisRadio.com. But first, let's get you informed with news around the world in 90 seconds.
USA Headline News, I'm Anthony Lucero. Authorities in Illinois say the shooting death of a police officer was a carefully staged suicide. Lieutenant Charles Glenowitz took his own life after committing a series of criminal acts. Glenowitz had apparently been stealing and laundering money from the police department for the past 7 years. U.S. intelligence officials reportedly believe that an explosive brought down a Russian passenger plane over Egypt last weekend. An official tells CNN that a bomb planted in a piece of luggage or somewhere else on the plane likely downed the jet, although no solid conclusion has yet been reached. The source says ISIS or an ISIS-linked affiliate is likely responsible. 4 people are recovering from stab wounds after being attacked by a man on the University of California at Merced. Police shot and killed the suspect on campus. The UC Merced campus is closed and expected to reopen on Wednesday. You're listening to USA Radio News.
From Feature Story News in London, I'm Ollie Barrett. UK Prime Minister David Cameron's hosting Egypt's President Sisi for talks in London as Britain grounds flights out of Sharm el-Sheikh over security fears. Myanmar's opposition leader Aung San Suu Kyi says she will be above the president if she wins Sunday's election. And a major rescue operation is underway in Lahore in Pakistan to save what's thought to be dozens of people trapped in rubble after a factory collapsed.
Hi, I'm Montel Williams. Most of you know me as a talk show host, but I'm also an author, actor, single father of 4, avid snowboarder, and I'm also a medical marijuana patient. Living with multiple sclerosis, I'm in pain every day. Medical marijuana is my last resort, and it helps me when all other drugs have failed. If you'd like more information about medical marijuana, you can contact the Marijuana Policy Project at mpp.org or call 1-877-JOIN-MPP.
Ignite the conversation on some trending topics along the Cannabis Radio social media network. Join our crew of thousands on our Cannabis Radio page on Facebook or at Canna Radio, C-A-N-N-A Radio on Twitter. Plus, look for our Facebook and Google Plus pages for all of our original programs and connect with Dr. Dina, Kyle Cushman, Dr. Mitch Earlywine, Nurse Heather, Doc Rob, the hosts of Ganjapreneur, and more. Connect with the growing Cannabis Radio social crusade at Canna Radio on Twitter or search for Cannabis Radio on Facebook, Google Plus, and Instagram and grow with us.
Chronicling the Cannabis Crusade. It's time now for the State of Cannabis. Only on CannabisRadio.com. Chronicling the latest cannabis industry news and headlines. Welcome to the State of Cannabis. Bringing you fact-based news and views and keeping listeners on the pulse of what's happening in the industry today. Advocates and analysts will join us to discuss the ongoing path to reform and legislation. Now, the State of Cannabis. With your host, Dave Inman.
Welcome to the State of Cannabis, keeping you, our listeners, on the pulse of what's happening in cannabis today. I'm your host, Dave Inman. With us tonight, we have Guy Bertuzzi. Guy is the publisher of Elevate. Guy, welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here. I'm excited.
And, I unfortunately cut off the NV part of that. So it's Elevate Nevada. Now, you have a publishing that's happening in Nevada specifically about cannabis. Tell us a little bit about Elevate.
Elevate Nevada was inspired by a trip to Denver about a year ago when I realized most of the magazines that are out there, which do a great job, and I don't want to take it away from them, but they're all appealing to a specific demographic of cannabis users. Nobody was looking to create a health and wellness magazine. So Elevate Nevada is traditionally a health and wellness magazine showing different results of different case studies of people utilizing cannabis for healing or for symptoms to get a better quality of life, some terminal, some not.
So basically this is all about like one's health, not necessarily about, for lack of a better term, the more traditional culture that would encompass cannabis. This is more like your person from, 30 to 90 that wants to get healthy.
Yeah, it's not just healthy. A lot of it's just trying to move the conversation forward. I wanted to create something. I am a big fan of the cannabis logo, the big pot plant, but I didn't want to utilize that to reach other readers. I wanted to educate readers of cannabis users and also open the door for non-cannabis users that have that stigma that sticks to it, and I wanted to appeal to them. I wanted to be able to sit on somebody's coffee table or carry it with them on a bus. I wanted to create an image of, I guess you could say, healthy living with a touch of some of the social ramifications as well.
So, essentially with cannabis, obviously it has a certain stigma that is associated with it regardless. We've had other people on the show, and that's actually a topic that we like to touch on, the stigma that occurs with use or just advocacy for cannabis. And let me ask, when you published this, did you find any increased stigma associated directly with you?
Oh, absolutely. First and foremost, my children go to Catholic school, and I became the pot publisher. And it's funny because even at birthday parties for my children, all the parents want to grab me in the corner and talk to me about it like it's still secret. In our upcoming issue, we have a Melissa Etheridge on the cover, and she actually made an amazing comment that I love. She compared it to the LGBT movement and was telling users to come out. And I feel that way, that the stigma, everybody looks at me and the basic label, when they hear that I have a marijuana publication or a cannabis publication, they're like, oh, you might be a pothead. And that's, it's not what I want to promote, because there is CEOs, CFOs of Fortune 500 companies using cannabis. The image which basic media propaganda utilized, the image is Shaggy from Scooby-Doo or somebody from Woodstock in '69. And truth be told, it's executives, it's everyday people, it's upper middle class, it's middle class. It's not just kids going to festivals.
And if anything, what we're learning from studies now is that less and less kids are going to cannabis at early age. That there's definitely a show of decline, from the Healthy Kids report, I believe from 2014, that shows a bit of a decline with that. And, it's again, speaking out and breaking that stigma that is associated with cannabis. I'm looking at your website right now. Folks, you can find this at elevatenv.com. That's ELEVATENV.com. It's a beautiful website. There's a subscribe button in green. Make sure that you click it and check it out. This is probably what is necessary more so than anything else is the education and the creating of the conversation. And clearly with this here, you help to, kind of bring it home. There's a lot to be said about when you have a family member that is suffering and you don't know what to do to ease that suffering. And things like this definitely help, pushing that question forward and making sure that question keeps being pressed. So tell me, what made you do this?
So, I am a mama's boy from Brooklyn. I was born to a traditional Italian-American family in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn, and my mom was my world. About 3 years ago, my mother had lung cancer, and it came back. She was in remission, and it came back. And the morning she called me, she told me that the lung cancer came back, and I was brokenhearted, and you could tell she was visibly upset. Through the phone, if you knew my mom, she was eccentric, shook, cried. And I loved her. I talked to her every morning to tell her I love her, but that call